Hello Muslim friends of the world. It is believed that the entry of Islam into European soil occurred centuries ago. However, no one can confirm exactly when Muslims penetrated France, one of the largest and most extensive countries in Western Europe. But now, the history of the beginnings of Islam in France is starting to come to light. This happened after European researchers succeeded in identifying 3 Muslim graves in Nimes, southern France. It is believed to be the oldest Muslim tomb ever discovered in Europe. French anthropologist Yves Gleize and several colleagues conducted a series of studies to confirm that the bodies in the 3 graves were Muslim. We know that Muslims arrived in France in the 8th century, but until now we had no material evidence of their journey, Gleize said. Genetic analysis shows that the 3 people buried in the tomb came from the same lineage, namely North African blood. Meanwhile, radiocarbon tests show that the bones are thought to date from the 7th to 9th centuries AD. Therefore, it is suspected that they were Muslims who lived during the conquest of Muslim troops into Europe during that period. The 3 tombs were first discovered in 2006 by workers who were digging to build an underground parking area. Inside the tomb, there are 3 human skeletons who were estimated to be around 20 years old, 30 years old, and 50 years old when they died. After examination, the 3 skeletons showed no signs of battle injuries. To the surprise of the researchers, the 3 bodies that had become skeletons were buried in accordance with Islamic teachings, namely with their bodies and faces facing the Qibla. These findings indicate that Muslims already existed in France in the early Middle Ages. Apart from the city of Nimes, other Muslim tombs have been found in Marseille, which are thought to date from the 13th century, and in Montpellier, which date from the 12th century. This finding is considered to add a new dimension to finding out more about the Muslim era in France. This is important considering that archaeological data on the history of Islam in France is very limited. These findings also provide new clues about how far Islam spread during its early presence in France. After studying all the data, French anthropologist Yves Gleize and his team suspected that the 3 skeletons found in Nimes, southern France, were Berber Muslim soldiers who were members of the Umayyad dynasty army. Berbers are grouped as the largest Arab ethnic group in the Islamic world. They joined the troops when the Umayyad dynasty expanded into North Africa, said Gleize. DNA tests showed that their father came from North Africa, which at that time was thought to be part of the Umayyad Caliphate. They are believed to have joined the ranks of the Umayyad army during its massive expansion into France, especially Nimes. The Umayyads were an Islamic caliphate that had a great history and extensive influence in the spread of Islam. During their heyday, the Umayyads succeeded in uniting the region stretching from China to southern France under one Islamic caliphate. The expansion of the Umayyad Caliphate also spread far to Spain. Regarding the discovery of the 3 skeletons in Nimes, the researchers emphasized that this is the first evidence of traces of Islam in France during the Middle Ages. Before being conquered by the Umayyads, the tomb of the 3 skeletons was in an area called Septimania. The region was part of the Visigothic Empire. Septimania was in the western region of the Roman province of Gallia Narbonensis. This area was once controlled by the Visigoths or Goths with their king Theodoric II. This region consists of 7 cities with Narbonne as the capital. Later, the Muslim army from the Umayyads succeeded in controlling the Narbonne area and reached the city of Toulouse. Finally, Muslim troops succeeded in controlling the Septimania region as a whole. Narbonne was also used as the center of government and military power. The development of Islam in France is known to have begun in the 8th century AD, after the discovery of 3 Muslim burial graves which are known to date from that century. Reporting from France24.com, the grave was discovered by archaeologists in southern France. Another Muslim burial site has been discovered in Marseille, but it dates to the 13th century. Another location is in Montpellier, which may date from the 12th century. Regarding the discovery of the 3 graves, several researchers who published in the journal PLOS One revealed a study of the emergence of Islam in France. When the region in North Africa was conquered by the Arabs in 719, the Berber tribe, the original inhabitants of the region, were expelled and established a foothold in southern France. There is a theory that the figure buried in France was part of a wave of Muslims that swept through North Africa and into Spain and as far away as France. France is the European country with the largest Muslim population, namely around 5.7 million in 2016. This data is according to a survey released by pureresearch.org. It is currently difficult to know the number of Muslims in France because the country does not collect census data on religion or ethnicity and keeps these two things in the private domain. It is known that the number of followers of Islam in France began to grow rapidly after World War I and II. That was because the government needed workers to repair the chaos of war. To overcome this, several workers were brought in from African regions such as Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia, and several from Asia who were then domiciled and naturalized as French citizens. Bringing workers from the African region was needed because the costs were cheap, so they could reduce development costs after the war. However, this also increases the number of Islamic immigrants in France. Because of that, they formed a large group and built several worship facilities. However, the presence of Muslims in France did not mean they could live peacefully at first. There were several frictions that occurred between immigrants and native residents. Perceptions of Muslims worsened in the 1970s when France experienced a recession. At that time, many immigrants were unemployed and gave the country a negative image. Then in 2001, when the WTC boom in the United States made the existence of Muslims even worse. This made French people label Muslims as terrorists and gave rise to discrimination in the country. It didn't end there. In 2011, the French government passed a law prohibiting the wearing of the burqa or veil in public. In 2020, Islam in France became increasingly pressured after the issuance of regulations rejecting Islam as a political value by President Emmanuel Macron. This means that Muslims in France are prohibited from providing personal information to other people and restrict homeschooling.